Alright, well, we've got one unopened package. There's another one that got opened because of high priority anime. That is, watched it with my Friday friend. But let's get these out. This here. Let's create an even space there. Because first we're going to show, I got a new Nintendo Switch OLED. And I figured I would at least power it on so that you could, compare to a launch Nintendo Switch. You can kind of see, I kept the original games. I didn't try to transfer counts or anything like that. Animal Crossing was the excuse, but I've been looking for an excuse. And, just to complete everything. Hey, look, there's the Switch Lite. Cool beans, and I want to show the mounting thing for this as well, but I don't know. That would require me to unhook it and do all that stuff, and it's a bit busier than I'd want. It's nice that it has built-in Ethernet, so I've got an extra dock and an extra USB to Ethernet connector floating around. So first up, we've got One Piece Season 11 Voyage 7. Season 11 Voyage 7. I hope I said that right. As you can see, already opened because this was a high priority watch. I watched this with my Friday friend, and you got Blu-ray DVD discs 1 and Blu-ray DVD discs 2. Especially important because he's going on a vacation trip thingy, and so I won't be able to watch him. So next we have Skullface bookseller Honda-san, which sounds like a silly concept. That said, I can't seem to grab this plastic. If I could just get a hold of it, then I can start peeling it off. And there we go. And this one's definitely a curiosity. Guess you have other faced people. Which I don't know what to make of it. It'd probably be kind of at least interesting start if he was just like unique in being a skull face. But whatever, it looks like this is Japanese with English subtitles only. It's about what I'd expect. And we've got that. We've got the bookseller people. Presumably other bookseller people. Next up, we have Tomorrow's Joe, the movie 2. All that remains is Snow White Ash. And I don't know anything about the Tomorrow Joe series other than, it seems like it's a bit of a classic. I think a lot of other anime like to reference it, sometimes in fairly subtle ways, but see, that's Japanese with English subtitles only. This one's the same underneath the slipcover, but that's okay. Looks like there is an option for swapping it though. But you know what? I think I might take advantage of that. We'll just put that in there. Make sure it's lined up. Next up, we have City Hunter 3, the complete third series. Let's get the plastic off. This time it came off pretty. And it's different underneath the slipcover. Something about this blue that's interesting. I think it's supposed. Is that supposed to be like moonlight? It's an interesting artistic thing. Japanese with English subtitles. Nani? That's probably not what he's actually saying, but that is a pretty shocked look. Interesting. So I take it the third series is not as long as some of the others, given that there's been parts 1 and 2 of a whole lot of stuff. I don't remember if there was a DVD release of Series 3, but... Well, the day I became a god. Guess it's good timing that this is here, considering I'm going to be talking a little bit about that. You have 30 days to live. What do you do next? We've got regions A and B, English dub, which makes sense. It was English dubbed on Crunchyroll as well, so. Different underneath the slipcover, which is always nice. Especially since, What release this? Aniplex? That might not have been Funimation or Sentai, considering I don't see the labeling. Whoa! I'm losing a little control there. Oh no, that's Funimation for sure. So this could be just... Oh yeah, that's probably the Funimation label right there. Kind of hard to see. I do wonder if maybe Funimation is being weakened and broken down by stuff. Some people may consider that a good thing, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I'm just like, yeah, it sounds like it'll be something that could result in there being less anime on DVD Blu-ray. So even though I watched the series on Crunchyroll, I obviously still want to get it on DVD Blu-ray. We've got Other Side Picnic. For a while there I was thinking, is this some sort of isekai picnic? But Other Side really usually means, you know, like Land of the Dead. So let's take a look at some of it. I'm not sure what to make of it. Yeah. Cute characters. Intriguing name. I kind of suspect, yeah, the Funimation insert. Hard to tell, but curiosity nonetheless. Don't believe your eyes. I don't think I watched either of those, so don't know that brings much meaning to me. Ingress, the animation. Looks interesting. Maybe a little cyberpunkish. I was just thinking, okay, so this is Sentai, okay, region A, audio, looks like there's an English dub. Good. First 9 episodes, then episodes 10 and 11. there was not a slipcover apparently. And then this is the reason why I was kind of hesitating starting a new series on Crunchyroll, because I kind of felt the itch to, but I didn't have the energy to push it too hard, and I knew this was here. And with my Friday friend being on vacation for a significant period of time, I'm probably going to actually watch this. So we got regions A and B. You know, this should have an English dub. Want to win? Better do it together. Definitely curious. This feels thicker. Series 5, Part 1. So as I open it, you know, gotta be careful of that insert, because this is still a Funimation release. And that's a very comic-looking thing. This is 5, Part 1. I can feel it. It's a little loose. That might be good enough. Blu-ray 2, 96 through 101. So this one actually said 89 through 95. So 89 to 101 should be like 12 episodes. There's DVD 1 and DVD 2. That said, he's a little out of place. Everybody else is kind of main characters that we're used to. Oh well. Here's this week's anime DVD collection update.
Okay, so last week I had watched most of The Day I Became a God. So this past week I, finished the last 2 episodes. It's was pretty so-and-so for me. I think the main problem is just that even though it was kind of a nice setup for the last couple episodes, I spent most of those just kind of angry and wanting vicious justice rain down on people in the show. So the things happening to our main characters, while kind of nice, were just distracted by me being in a kind of lousy mood, I guess. And I kind of mentioned, the show had fun things going for it. I liked the characters, what it did, some of the setup. It did funny, crazy things, but I guess some of the things that it did, which could be kind of the maybe attempts to be smart, I don't know, disappointed me in certain people and made me really hate them. Let's see, I also watched, and looking at my notes over there, One Piece Season 11 Voyage 7, and I think I was in a kind of bad mood for this one as well. I mean, it's okay, but I really do feel like this show is just distracting itself way too much. I mean, there's interesting backstories for characters that have been introduced for this arc, but it's starting to feel so distracting in the level of like the show's not even telling the story that it's currently telling. It's just telling a bunch of individual character stories and saying, hey, here's a character story that we came up with, here's another character story we came up with, here's another one. And I feel like One Piece has always done that to some degree. It just feels like maybe it got turned up to 11 for this arc. And while, again, it makes for interesting explanations for why some of the characters we see are the way they are, it's dragging on. I was really wanting to see something closer to. So I don't feel like it's building up. I think that's the main problem. It's like, this is a problem I've noticed in Season 11, where every time it introduces something that in theory could be raising the stakes, instead it actually feels like it's forgetting the previous stakes that were raised. And I could talk about some of the details like that, but I just want to keep it at this high level. It's exhausting me, and it doesn't feel like other stakes being raised things that I, think of fondly in the past. So I'm not sure if there's a payoff that could make it as good of a story arc as some of those other story arcs, but you know, I don't want to spoil too much by talking about it. I just kind of note that, you know, I maybe wasn't in the best mood this week. I mean, the fact that I've watched more anime than I remember watching this week, I feel like I've been pretty exhausted. And that's related to stuff I'll talk about after the anime, but let's see. Other than that, I watched Dr. Stone Season 2. Oh, that's another thing I can pull from it. Here, okay, cool. The pile of stuff. You know, even though I watched this one and Day I Became a God on Crunchyroll, you know, I've got the Blu-ray DVDs. I might as well show them here, you know? And it was better than I was afraid of going into it. The main problem has just been based on whether or not certain things would actually play out well or not at the end of the first season, combined with some of the advertising for the second season kind of showing up more of the action-y elements when I've considered the science-y elements to be more entertaining. I was a bit afraid that it had kind of gotten too distracted from its main premise. But actually watching it, it stayed pretty closely in there and it was pretty good. Maybe not the bestest thing ever if you kind of like the way that stuff was handled in Season 1. But I'd say actually not too far underneath that if that's the case. So some people may actually like Season 2 more just because, you know, maybe there's a little bit less of that and more action-y stuff and they prefer the action-y stuff. And that would be fair. You know, that's not necessarily what I say I prefer. The action stuff needed to be present in order to make things happen, but there was some weird logic going on, and some of the stuff I think they tried to clean up a little bit, but again, the series has had its flaws, but if there's one thing it's been really nice for, and that's strong distinctiveness, it's you know, the science part of it. And I think I mentioned before that it's not necessarily science, you know, because science is kind of about the process of testing models. So this is more of an application, so it's more of an engineering show. But I guess sometimes when you take science classes, it's kind of a chance for the establishment to show off kind of its awesome stuff that it's done, and not for you to build up, oh, this is what people have tried and done, and, you know, this is what they've determined. And it's interesting because you kind of have to remember that to a certain degree, they're not always right. Like you can have people that tell you, oh yeah, science has disproven that it could be this, and sometimes it didn't actually disprove that, even though people thought it did. And I was actually thinking about Death Valley, a place in that known as the racetrack, where there are rocks that mysteriously move. There's trails, and people had a couple of hypotheses on how it might happen, and they thought they had disproved that ice was the cause of it, but it actually turns out that it was ice. What they had disproved was that it was thick sheets of ice doing it, but thin sheets of ice could also do it, and those were what were actually moving the rocks. So, so yeah, they thought they had disproved it, but it turns out they had disproved something else. And that's the kind of thing where you just always have to remember, real science isn't, oh yes, we know what's right. It's, we've got a model that predicts things, and it's useful, and sometimes it means that model is wrong, and it doesn't mean it's always wrong. Some people like to think things are more wrong than they actually are, but at the same time, we can't forget that it doesn't mean that a model that somebody has built is right. Especially, and usually you have to see about how people are talking about this sort of stuff. You need to look for the qualifiers that indicate that people aren't, you know, sitting around saying, no, it's definitely not that. I don't see how it could be that. I can tell you, as a software engineer, there are a lot of bugs in code that it can't be X. There's no way it can be X. It turned out to be X. And it doesn't mean that it's always X, but it means that you can't say that you're right just because you haven't found a way to not make it right. And we have to remember that's a humbleness that we need to hold. And I think I also hold that as kind of, there's this idea that I heard that I extended, and I've probably talked about it before, where, you know, when a kid starts growing up, they start maturing when they realize people can be full of shit. But they're still really dependent on their parents, so they might not realize that their parents are full of shit. And they become an actual adult when they realize their parents are full of shit. In other words, the general idea is just because your parents said, oh no, there's no way we can open candy on Halloween night, we have to give it a day so that any poisons have a chance to break apart, that doesn't necessarily make any sense per se. You know, that could just be a superstition they developed, something like that. You know, your parents develop things in order to help them cope with the world. And sometimes, you know, you have to realize they're doing that, but you're going to do that too, or something like that. But basically, you have to learn to go out into the world and just realize you're just going to be wrong sometimes, just like your parents were. But I guess that leads to the level above that, which is you become wise when you realize that you're full of shit. And I guess I was just kind of talking about that, so I'm probably mixing things up, so I'm not remembering exactly right. But the idea is, once you realize you do a lot of things to trick yourself into believing certain things, then I think you start understanding better what you need to hold on to and not hold on to in terms of just otherworldly wisdom. Anyways, that's Dr. Stone. You know, interesting show. For the weekly stuff, it looked like there was maybe no additional episode of Land of Leadale. I don't know about Dress Up Darling, because, you know, I didn't try to watch either of those, but it looked like maybe there was one more episode of Dress Up Darling, and that's the end of the core, and I really should watch it. I barely watched the, what I think is the season or the core finale of Life with an Ordinary Guy Who Reincarnated as a Fantasy Knockout. And, you know, it had a pretty fun, pretty good season or core ending. Like, it didn't end the show, but it maintained the level of humor, addressed some stuff that is pretty relevant to the core social dynamics of the show, while also, you know, reminding you of that and saying, all right, and now they get to continue on their journey after that hump, and they gave us a direction forward where it's going to go from there. So overall, pretty good. You know, maybe not the best story out there per se, but, you know, it's just been hilarious the whole way. I very appreciate it. And if Leadale really did end on whatever that was I last saw, then yeah, that one's definitely got a little bit of weakness to it there, I guess. But yeah, good stuff. So other than that, I got the new Nintendo Switch. You can see that the one game I have on there is Animal Crossing, and that was my excuse. And the idea is I wanted to create a third island. And I guess I got the Switch on Thursday, so it's just been a lot of grinding. I'm not using time traveling. And for those of you unfamiliar, in Animal Crossing, time traveling refers to setting your clock forward so that you move to the next day quicker. You know, I could do that, but I'm letting myself be paced more or less by the fact that there's things that don't happen until you go forward to the next day. And there are things I'm trying to do with this island that are kind of horrifying in certain ways, and I do want to see where I end up going with them, but the main idea is 3 islands is a lot to pay attention to. I'm probably not even going to be able to completely maintain all of them when I reach a point where everything's where I want it to be, but I at least want to make Island 3 just take into account the stuff I learned from Island 2 in terms of making a maintainable island. Now, some of the things I'm doing I can only really do because Island number 2 and 1 exist, and there's an example, there's a trade-off. You have trees on the island, and a lot of trees, you know, you reach a limit, but a lot of trees is just an easy way to have a lot of scenery points. The big problem with trees is they're actually really inefficient for that. Like, if you took away every single tree and just replaced them with flowers, you get 9 times the scenery points. So in theory, you could have 1/9 the plants, except, you know, the less trees you have, the less wood you can get on a daily basis from them, which requires you to get wood in other ways that you might not be able to. So you can't necessarily fund large explosions of projects. And so there's a trade-off there. But, you know, if you reduce the number of trees, in this case I've reduced it to 22 trees. I've just gotten rid of all the fruit trees. My other islands, the fruit trees kind of tend to be used for little stuff here and there, but it's usually more decorative and I don't want to harvest them, so why am I even doing that? The exception I made in this case is coconuts, but if I take away all the fruit trees and I just have hardwood and cedar. Is that the right one? I guess so. Hardwood and cedar trees. Then I only need 22 total of them to get the stuff I normally get on a day-to-day basis. Which is to say that, you know, there's going to be 5 hornets, there's going to be 15 coins, and there's going to be 2 furnitures in those trees. And my experience has been that I'm getting exactly that every single day, so every tree is very efficient. Likewise, since there's only a handful of trees, the 15 sticks that drop every day are really fucking easy to find. So it's really great for getting the trees done really fast. Other things I'm going to do, this entire island is going to be paved once I get terraforming. And the main goal is going to be to maybe not pave absolutely all of it, but to pave the vast majority of it and leave an area that's open that's dirt. I'll have to decide on the dirt. I mean, I think the rocks may or may not be dirt bound. I'm going to play with that one a little bit. I think I'm going to make it where they're surrounded by concrete. I think I can do that. I'll be able to experiment with it once I get to that point. I'm nowhere near that, but you know, that means I should be able to make it where the rocks are in one well-defined location, the trees are in one small well-defined location, and I can leave a small area, relatively speaking, of non-concrete area where growth can happen. So that's where fossils will pop up, that's where weeds will pop up. By making it dirt, it'll be much easier to spot the grass. I'll make sure it's at the edge of a cliff so that if I do manage to get the island to 5 stars, then the lilies of the valley have a chance to spawn there. But that one I could make like really small, just because, you know, we're talking about 4, max 6 fossils, maybe 3 or 4. You know, we could make room for 4 gyroids, you know, money tree, grass. Literally, if there's a 5x4 block area, that's probably going to cover absolutely everything I need. I guess if there was any reason to make it bigger, it's to give lilies of the valley a chance to spawn. I don't know the priorities of those compared to everything else spawning, but you know, if I keep that one little spot clean, yeah, I'll play with the size once I get to terraforming and realize where everything is going to be and things like that. But in the interim, you know, I got to work there first, and without time traveling, it's a lot of work, and because I got rid of so many of the trees, I do have to worry about the fact that I don't have many scenery points, and I also have to worry about being low on development points because I built the one necessary bridge, but I'm not planning to build more. Not until I terraform and get everything arranged the way I want it to. So that pretty much means you know, I'm going to be low on development points, low on scenery points, but hopefully I can still get it up to 3 stars and start getting the island into its final shape, moving all the houses into the right place, and then getting the villagers moved in that I want to get moved in. So it means that my first 2 islands are feeding a lot of stuff into it, and I'm getting ready for, let's see, today was the day when the 3rd villager moved in, so tomorrow the resident services are going to be closed, and on Wednesday they'll be open again. Isabel will be there, and I'll be able to talk to her about my island evaluation and find out what I need to do to get the 3 stars. Now, I do believe I'm still going to need like 2 more villagers at a minimum, and because I think you need 7 villagers to do that. And then I'm going to need and then I'll need to find out if I'm lacking in development or scenery, and I suspect I'll be lacking in scenery, and at that point, that's when my first 2 islands are going to construct a ton of DIY stuff. They have a lot of materials, especially a shit ton of rocks and iron and clay. Probably focus on the rock stuff, just because usually there's not a whole lot of other need for non-rock stuff. I don't know. So, you know, bland, but I'm having to really focus on that. And, you know, to add to the Animal Crossing craziness, you know, I've got these 2 things back here, which, you know, I kind of mentioned, you know, I'm not here to show them off too much. Let's actually grab this one. But, you know, I've got the amiibo cards, and they're bootleg ones. I don't know, that's just what's easy to get at this point. And I do want more, but I decided to, you know, organize them. So I did my first arts and crafts in a long time, which was getting cardboard paper and a guillotine cutter to cut some exact sized stuff. Then some precision hole punching manually done. I should get some sort of hole punch machine so that I could, you know, say, hey, here's the Series 1 amiibo cards I have, and here's the Series 2, here's the Series 3, you know, cool stuff. And this one has Series 4, 5, the Welcome series, and the Sanrio series. Not that it took a lot of time to do that, but it did take a lot of time to just shop around at Target to find out how I would do it. I had an idea in the head, and I had to see what was actually available. Fun stuff. But exhausting stuff. Yeah. I'd like to say that, you know, I'm at the point where things will be nice and slower on there, but truth be told, once resident services unlock, I might have big projects to do again. And I have some motivation for doing that just because it I just need to get that at a place. Anything else? I haven't been playing as much Dead by Daylight. I'm exhausting myself, and I just don't have the energy to do much. But yeah, that's things. Hopefully y'all are holding up better. Get the sleep you need. Be appreciative that Skittles actually brought Lime back. I mean, yeah, I agree with the coworker that I've not been a big fan of sour green, but sour green, you know, people like that. But the big problem is sour green really just messes up. You grab a handful of original flavor Skittles and pop them in your mouth. Lime was really good for that, even if it was kind of my least favorite flavor. Yeah, stuff. Alright, y'all, have a nice week.